earlier in the season, I went through every single player that had ever played for Chelsea this season and gave them a grade based on how well they'd performed throughout that part of the season. Now that the season is over, we can do a whole assessment and see whether or not that has changed for any of these players and whether they have futures at this great club. Let's go. Alright, so here we have the tier list. I'll go through the tiers that we have this time. We have Player of the Season shout, great, good, decent, poor, disaster, and more info needed, specifically for those players that didn't really get enough game time to kind of judge them. Now, as I said, this is a tier list I've made on tierlistmaker.com. If you want to do this yourself, the link will be down in the description. I encourage you to do this yourself and then send your opinions to me on Twitter. You can take a screenshot and send it to me on Twitter. The links for my Twitter will be on screen now and also in the description as well for those of you on mobile. Now, as we're going to go through this, we're going to say a little bit about each player. I've got every single player that's played any type of minute for us at all this season in this list. I don't think that I've missed anyone. If I have, then blame the official Chelsea website and or Transfer Market, who I've gotten this information from. I think we've got this all in alphabetical order. Let's start with Josh Achempong. Now, I think, because considering how little minutes he played, and that's going to be a factor for me saying here, I think that he was a good player this season. I think he played well every time we saw him. I don't think he's good enough to get into great, simply because he wasn't really given the platform to do that, you know? He wasn't really given the platform to show how great he can be. And let's be honest, next season he might not be here. I feel like he might get one of those, those type of Reece James type loans out to a championship club where he kind of settles in and then, he can come back next season and be a real threat, maybe that. But we'll talk about futures of other players in another video a little bit later. Next up, let's go Tosin Adarabioyo. Now, I would put him in great, but I think it would be a disservice to the other players that I'm going to put in great if I did do this. Because, again, he hasn't been a fully fledged starter. He hasn't, until recently, really kind of cemented himself as a starting centre-back. So I'm going to put him in good. Again, I think he's been very, very solid, especially for a free transfer. I think he's been very, very good for us when we've needed him, especially when he plays in that centre-back role. I think he's been very good there, not only being aerially dominant and winning his duels and things like that, but also his decisive kind of intricate passing in between the lines from that central position, a la what Levi Colwill would do, has been very good when he has had the chance to play. Maybe he can cement himself next to Colwill a little bit next season. It depends on whether we bring in new centre-backs or not. That's, again, another question for another day. But again, I think Tosin has been very good this season. Maybe we adjust these as we kind of go through as well, depending on who I put in here. But for now, Tosin gets into the good box. Next up is Matisse Amugu, and he is the first player that is going into this more info needed spot. He has played for us a couple of times, I believe, but he hasn't really gotten enough minutes, hasn't really gotten enough touches of the ball either to kind of show what he can do, and he's probably going to be one of those players that gets loaned out to Strasbourg next year. That's kind of already been rumoured, so he might be one of the ones that goes out there. So yeah, more info needed for him. Let's go to next is Atto Ampa. Now, again, he's another one where he's played this season. He hasn't played enough minutes to really get a grasp of kind of how good he has been, so he's going to go in here. However, the player after him, who's also a youth player, Genesis Antwi, I'm actually going to put him not in this box. I'm going to put him in decent, simply because every time we've kind of seen him play, which is, again, few and far between, he's actually put in a decent performance, and he's been a player that's gotten on the end of things. He was very close to scoring in one of our Conference League games that he came off the bench from, on that right-hand side, playing very, very well. And yeah, I think he's been decent. He's not been bad by any means, but he hasn't been great by any means. But for the amount of minutes that he got, very, very decent showing from him. Next up, we have Benoit Badiashile. Now, again, this is hard. This is a hard one because I think this, if we're judging it on the overall season, we have to judge it on the overall season. I think that he hasn't been the best centre-back for us this year. I would think it would be quite harsh to put him in a poor, though, because I feel like towards the end of the season, he did start picking up and he did start playing well. I think in the Conference League, which we obviously won and we kept, we kind of had a quite good defensive record in that competition. I think it would be fair to put him in decent. I don't think he's been particularly bad. There hasn't been there's not coming to my head. There isn't like a glaringly obvious mistake that he's made or anything that's coming to my head immediately. So I don't think I'm going to put him in poor or disaster. But maybe he gets pushed down depending on who else goes in this box. But for now, I think Ben has been pretty decent. I think he'll probably stay here despite the interest from clubs like AC Milan and things like that. So there we are. Next up is Moises Caicedo, and this is the most obvious one of all time. He actually got graded our player of the season, and let's be real, he has been consistently our best player every single match. He has been putting in 8 to 9 out of 10 performances, if not 10 to 11 rated performances for us all season. He's been by far the best defensive midfielder in the league all year. There's no question about that. And yeah, for us, a player of the season shout. He already won player of the season. So phenomenal from Mo again. And this is one of the things that he's come into his own. He's obviously got a trophy behind him now. I think he can even get even better next year, especially because we're bringing in players like Andre Santos back from loan. We're bringing in Leslie Ugochukwu, who can play in that deeper role. We're bringing in obviously Asugo, who may or may not stay. We don't know. He's now been confirmed officially to be a Chelsea player. We've also got of course, Lavia, who can play in that deeper six role, and it might suggest that Caicedo can, play in a bit more of an advanced role where he's kind of meant to play. He is not a six. Like, he's been playing as this defensive midfielder for a whole season. He's been phenomenal at it, but let's be real, he's not a six. He is an 8. If you see how he plays for Ecuador, he gets way higher up the pitch. He can implement or impact the game way further up the pitch, and we saw from the Conference League final that he can be a player that gets up onto the edge of the box and scores goals. He's good enough to do that. So maybe we even see even more from Caicedo next season, which would be a harsh expectation considering how good he's been this year. But yeah, phenomenal from Mo, and yeah, long may it continue. Next up is Cesare Casadei. Now, I'm going to be putting him into poor simply because, not really because of the amount of games he played or anything, because he did play a few games in the Conference League. He played in that deeper role and he was comfortable-ish there, wasn't particularly great, but he obviously has moved on now to Torino. It's a permanent sale, so it's not really a successful season for you if you can't stay at your club, is it? So he's going to be in poor. I don't think he was particularly a disaster or anything, but yeah. Chalabar, this is a new one. This is a hard one because I think that when obviously he wasn't here for the first half of the season. He was playing well for Palace. We brought him back and he had a really good game on his first game and then went a bit shaky afterwards. But since then, he has come back and formed this new partnership with Levi Colwill and has actually been pretty good. I overall think that will kind of equal itself out and pump him down to decent, and I think he is a decent rotational option. And I think that if he does stay this year, which may or may not happen, obviously we've already been trying to get rid of him for the last season or two now, so I think this year could be the season where he does actually go out, and maybe he goes to Palace, for example. That might be a place that he goes. But yeah, he's been very decent in the second kind of stint of the season. He's largely part of the reason why we've been able to hold on to results, the results at the end of the season. And though, yes, his form has been good recently, I can't discredit the rest of the season. As I said, this is an overall ranking, so I can't discredit the first half of the season where he couldn't get a game for us and was eventually shipped out. So there we are. Next up is Ben Chilwell. This one's, I feel like this one's harsh, but I think Ben Chilwell, again, this was a disaster from the start of the season. From that first clip where we saw the famous Chile thing from Enzo Maresca, we knew that this was not going to work out for him here at Chelsea. He has not been the same player since he got back to fitness from his long-term injury. He's never been the same. He doesn't fit into this team either. He's not that type of player that can invert into the midfield. He's always been a player that's better going forward than he is going back. And yeah, it's been a disastrous season for him as a Chelsea player. That being said, he has obviously gone to Crystal Palace, and though he hasn't played too many games for them, he has won a domestic cup, so good for him. Maybe that is his permanent home now. Maybe we make this deal permanent and he stays there. We'll have to see. Next up is Carney Chukwuemeka. Now, this one's painful because I loved Carney Chukwuemeka as a player. I think that he's been very good for us at times. This season, though, he's going into poor. Again, he, like Casadei, same reasoning. He's played a few games in the Conference League for us early in the season. He played, all right. He wasn't particularly mind-boggling or eye-catching, in my opinion. And he's moved out to Dortmund. He's been pretty decent there. As a Chelsea player, it's been a poor season for him because he didn't really get to show what he could do, and then he got shipped out. So he goes there. And yeah, hopefully he does get a permanent move to Dortmund. Obviously, there's been talks of us buying Jamie Bino-Gittins at the moment, and maybe he is used in those kind of, those conversations as a separate deal, but kind of, like a sweetener. Say, maybe we'll give you Carney for a cheaper price if you give us Gittins for a cheaper price, that type of thing. Maybe he can be used as a bargaining tool for that. And I hope he does kind of find a home at Dortmund, even though they're kind of looking at Joe Bellingham at the moment as well. Hopefully he can find a bit of a home there and, get back to form after he's been riddled with injury after he's kind of come back to us. And yeah, it's sad because he was so promising for us, and like we know that he's got the potential to be a very good player, and I hope he does fulfill that for his sake at a different club, because he currently just doesn't have a place here. Next up is Levi Colwill, and you know what? I'm gonna eat I'll eat a slice of humble pie here. He's going in great. I think towards the start of the season, the early part of the season, I have mentioned that I felt like he was a little bit overrated by our team, by our fan base in general. I felt like people felt that he was untouchable in that position. I didn't think that he was. However, he was still good, right? I'm never going to say that he wasn't good. He was good, but he wasn't as great as I think a lot of other people were kind of making him out to be. And I still felt like there was a lot of potential that he had that he wasn't really fulfilling. However, that has drastically changed in this last kind of period where we've been needing to hold on to games, and he's been forming this different partnership with for example Tosin and with Chalabar as well, and kind of making that defense really really solid. And I think obviously he's been the constant there. The other two centre backs have changed, or all the centre backs have changed all season. It's always been a Tosin coming in, or Chalabar coming in, or Badiashile coming in. Always been a different player, but the one constant has been Levi Colwill, and I think that in that run in to secure us Champions League football and to obviously get us to Conference League, there was a clear difference, and you could see it. Even though Badiashile played very, very well in that final, in the Conference League final, there was a clear difference when he came onto the pitch and how much more intense we looked because of his passing, because of his ability to easily win the ball, his ability to defend 1v1s and things like that. And for that, I think he goes into great. I think he's been genuinely pretty good this year. And as I said, I'll eat a slice of humble pie because I didn't think he was particularly good at the start of the season. And he has proven me wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong. Next up is Marc Cucurella. Now, again, I could put him in the player of the season shout because I think he has been really, really phenomenal for us. I don't know if that's harsh on Moises Caicedo. I think I probably did put him here in the halfway through the season. I'm going to put him in here simply because he has clutched up so many times for us and genuinely saved our season at times, getting really, really important goals in both competitions, being in general just the kind of role model player for Chelsea in the fact that he always puts effort in, even if he, even if he has moments where he's slipped over twice and cost us 2 goals in that Spurs game, for example. He got new shoes on, he got back up to his feet and, started playing well again. And it's that mentality that I really admire from Cuckoo, is the fact that he's always a player that puts 110% in effort in rather to perform for the shirt and for the badge. And it's a quality that a lot of the players have been missing this season at times. There's a few of them that have been always like that, and I'll talk about them later when we get to them. But he's been a role model as a left back, and to be fair, as a player that has been pretty much the only player that can play on that left side this entire season, he doesn't have any backup and he's having to play so many games, and his performances have not diminished at all since he kind of was the only player that can play there. Again, another great performance from him in the Conference League final too, completely locking up Anthony. He still hasn't let him out of his pocket, by the way. He probably needs to do that at some point. But yeah, phenomenal from Cuckoo. There's not much more I can say about him. We know that we know that he's he's been one of our best players all season, and long may it continue. Next up is Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Now, I'm going to be maybe a little biased here because I like Kiernan. I'm putting him in good. And this might be a bit shocker because I've put Badiashile and Chalabar in here. I think that Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall is one of the most underrated players in our team. And I think that a lot of people think that because he's some rotational option, that he doesn't have any value to him, and that because he can't start, he's not going to be fighting for his place or whatever have you, he's just not worth being around, which I think is rather silly. Obviously, any good team will have their starting 11 and they'll have players that can rotate in, or players that can rotate in cup games and things like that. As a servant to this club, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall has been very, very good this year. He has played every single Conference League game for us, and he has got the second highest rating in that competition for a player. He has been very, very good when he has played, and I think it goes under the radar how much he's put in terms of effort as well and kind of drive, despite being pushed to the side and despite not being a starter and not really getting the amount of football that he probably would have wanted this season. And I think he's been pretty good. Again, I think he's a player that goes so under the radar in terms of kind of, a player that has been a really good servant for us in that second team. And yeah, hopefully he may probably leave this season because, again, the game time, he probably backs himself to get more game time, and he's just not going to get that with the amount of insane midfield depth that we have. So if this is his final season in a Chelsea shirt, I wish him well. If not, I think he's a great option for that left-hand side because, again, he's the only player that we have on that side who's a left-footed centre mid. We don't have many of those. I remember talking about this when we sold Lewis Hall before, the fact that he was a centre mid that was playing a left back, and I felt that he could play there because he's the only left-footed one that we have. Now we've got Kieran Dewsbury Hall in that role, and hopefully maybe he can stay here because to be fair, I'm a bit biased and I do just like him a lot. Next up is Axel Disasi, and I feel like it would be a bit harsh to put him in disaster, but I'm tempted to do it just because the names are similar and obviously that's his kind of slander name. I'm not going to do that. I felt like he was decent enough when he played for us. Obviously he got shipped out to Villa and he's been okay there. Maybe he gets a permanent move to Villa, not sure there, but yeah, I'm going to put him in poor. He's another one that kind of didn't really ever really, he played decent when he was here, but not enough to kind of put him any higher than this. But he didn't play well. He didn't play poorly enough for him to go into disaster, in my opinion. He's just kind of a victim of circumstance in that regard. Next up, we have Keanu Dyer, again, a player that I don't think really played enough to really get a good grasp of how good he is. Going to keep him in the more info needed. Next up, we have Joao Felix. Now, this is another one where I'm going to put him in poor, simply because I think that he actually played pretty well, or at least decently well, when he was given the chance in our first team this season. But it's been a bit of a disaster for him in terms of him kind of having to go out on loan and not like making the first team anymore. So I could drop him down a little bit because of that, maybe because it's been such a poor signing, because he obviously Disasi and Chilwell we had for a long time, whereas he was a signing. He was kind of going in to be a game changer and it hasn't really worked out. In fact, actually, I've convinced myself he's going down here. I've convinced myself as a player that cost like 54 million for him to go back out on loan on the same season is pretty disastrous. So I'm going to put him there, even though I do think that when he did play for us earlier in the season and playing in the conference, I did think he was relatively decent. Next up is Enzo Fernandez. Now, this is a controversial one because I know a lot of people in the Chelsea fan base don't rate this guy for whatever reason. He's going in my player of the season shout. I think he's been so phenomenal for us, and he's shown his versatility this season, which is the thing which is important. Most people see him as just this Regista 5 type role that plays deeper and can, make things tick like a Jorginho type. I don't think he's that. I think he's much more than that. I think he is a box-to-box midfielder, and he's really proven it this season with being tasked with being purely box-to-box. Now, under Pochettino, we didn't get to see him play box-to-box. We get to see him playing really high and left, in almost in like a left forward position. That didn't really suit him, and even though he got a few more goals than when he was playing as a 5, which is natural when you're playing much higher up the pitch, we never really saw the greatest kind of performances from him. However, Enzo Maresca has completely transformed this guy into a pure box-to-box 8 that plays in that left 8 that can pick up the ball deep and dictate play, but also get up the pitch and, influence things further up the pitch. And the thing which has been so good about him is that his box crashing, and I know it's a term which gets thrown around and it's jargon and people are probably tired of it by now, but his box crashing ability has gone up tenfold. He's so good at getting into those positions, getting goals and assists from higher positions, whether that's in the box or just outside the box when he's coming, to the D or whatever, or to the penalty spot. He has been so good, and yeah, I think he's gotten 20, maybe more. It might be 22 at this point. I can't remember. 20 goals and assists this season. It's a large portion of the goals that we've got in all competitions this year, and he scored some pretty important ones as well. So very good for him. Of course, he gets the equaliser in the Conference League final as well from that box crashing style that he's been playing, and that sets us on our way to get the win there as well. He's been phenomenal. I don't care what the haters say about him. I think he's great. He's going to be in my player of the season shouts. Next up is Wesley Fofana. Now, this is a bit of a hard one. I'm going to put him in good because I think that when he has played, he has been great for us. I think he's been as good as Levi Colwill, or, a little bit less than Levi Colwill, but in the same kind of bracket, right? Whereas Colwill's been up here and Fofana's been down here. They're still kind of in the same section, right? That's what I would say. However, he gets docked points and dropped down simply because he's not been available enough, and because of the fact that it's kind of been reported now that the reason that he has gotten re-injured and the reason why he didn't really recover well from his injury is that he himself rushed himself back too quickly. He said that he was okay when he clearly wasn't, and obviously it's understandable when you want to get on that pitch and play, but availability is the best ability, and as we've seen from other players this season that have kind of been able to stay a bit fitter than they would usually be able to. He's been a bit of a disappointment in that regard, in terms of him just not being able to stay fit for extended periods of the time. Because again, this partnership that he built with Colwill early in the season was really good. And I will give him credit for that, and that's why he's in the good box. I think he is a good player. I think he's played well for us, but he hasn't played enough, and he hasn't played enough to kind of justify me putting him up into great. Next is Tyreek George, and this is a difficult one because I think, again, he's been good for us. He hasn't played a lot of minutes, but he's played more than he probably would expect. He's obviously broken into the first team this year. I think I'm going to put him in good too. I think I'm going to put him in good too. I think that he's obviously not got the most stats. He's not got the most goals or assists or anything like that. But he's done he's kind of stepped up in the absence of Mykhailo Mudryk and really taken that role by storm in terms of kind of being able to play on that left wing and play in the Conference League, get those kind of those few goals and assists that he does get. And again, some of them are really important. I genuinely believe, and this is a crazy thing to think about, if he does not get that equalising goal at Fulham, or against Fulham rather, we don't go on this meteoric rise up the table and get the top four. I don't think we have the confidence to even get the equaliser from Neto, obviously, and then go on to get top four and then get the Conference League as well. I think that his goal in that is so important. And obviously that's not the whole reason why I'm putting him in here, because I do think he just played really, really good. The main reason why I'm going to be putting him in here is because of his versatility and the fact that he's been a really good utility player for us. When we didn't have Jackson and we didn't have, Nkunku, and we didn't have Guiu because of injury and things like that, he was the player that stepped up and said, you know what, I can be your starting striker. And Maresca used him as a striker in a few games. I think he was pretty good in the ones that he did play. He got, obviously he gets his goal at Fulham, as I said, against Fulham in that centre forward position. And yeah, I think he actually, despite not really, being a centre forward, he's actually done better there than another youth player, which I'll talk about in a little bit, who actually is a striker and has probably wanted to kind of play here and didn't really get the opportunity. But yeah, I think it's a good season from George. Maybe he gets a loan. It depends on who we kind of sign in that left wing spot. If we do, obviously, I said Gittins is a shout there. Obviously, we've just recently found out today that we're not renewing Jadon Sancho's kind of deal. We're not permanently signing him, so he's going back to United. So we've lost that position. So maybe he comes in there. Depends on, again, Misha Mudryk. Maybe if Mudryk comes back from his suspension early, we don't know. Maybe he plays there. There's places up for grabs, and I think that George could definitely do that. Next up is Mark Guiu, and yeah, this one's tough because I think he's been good. I think he's been better than I think a lot of people expected him to be. I don't think anyone really expected an 18-year-old, or I think he might have been 17 by when we actually bought him. I'm not sure, but no one expected an 18-year-old to come into the club from the Barca youth team and just hit the Europa Conference League so hard. He did so well in that competition, and genuinely, if he didn't get injured, if he didn't have that horrific injury, which is a really unfortunate one for him and put him out for 3 months, he would have probably been the top goal scorer in that competition instead of Palulu. And yeah, if that was the case, then he would have gone further up. I felt like it was sad for him to kind of, not be able to play a part in the final, or more of a part in the final, considering how well he played in those competitions. And I felt like he was a good, decent option as a rotational striker, but he was kind of, his pathway was just being a bit blocked by Nkunku. I think like if we didn't have Nkunku this season, I feel like he would have played a lot more. And he would have gotten the opportunity to get some more Premier League minutes as well. But yeah, I think he's been good for us. Again, maybe with more minutes, he could have been a little bit a little bit more happier with this season, but I think he was a decent enough player today. Next up is Malo Gusto. Now, I'm not going to put him in disaster because it's not been a disastrous season for him. Let's not be harsh. However, he has been poor. I think it's kind of, it's hard to me to judge Gusto because, again, there's the caveat of that he's playing in a position that he's not very good at. It's clear that he's been forced to play in this inverted midfield role, and he's not the greatest at it. As he plays in that right centre mid role, he's been good going forward at times, but he's been very poor defensively. And The thing which kind of bugs me, and the reason why I put him in poor specifically, is because it's the things which he should not be doing poorly, which are like the fundamentals of football that apply to any position, regardless of whether you're playing in this right inverted role or as a normal right back. Whereas his marking and his tackling, for example, have been poor. His general defending has been pretty poor, and his passing has been so awful this season. The thing which really stands out to me is that we saw him obviously as a fullback last season, getting up really high, putting balls into the box, and even though his delivery wasn't great, it was still decent, right? It was still decent delivery, and obviously he was getting a lot of balls into the box. Obviously, that has changed with this new formation and this new kind of system he plays, but he has still gotten into positions on the underlap or on the overlap sometimes when the winger and him rotate to be able to kind of get the balls into the box. And he has literally put in, and I kid you not, he has put in one accurate ball all season, in my opinion. I don't know, I haven't actually looked at the stats whether that's true, and it probably isn't, and it's a bit of an exaggeration, but from my memory, there's only one time he's ever crossed the ball and it's actually gone to someone. And that's the main thing which kind of stands out to me, is that his delivery and his passing as a creative player, if you're going to be playing in the central mid position, and we've seen James play there and how good and creative he can be, if you're going to be playing there, you need to get your passing better. Obviously, in the Conference League final, he costs us a goal right at the start because his passing is too poor. He tries to force a pass that's not going to happen. And again, that's just footballing IQ not being there, which is something that shouldn't disappear despite you playing in a different position. But yeah, it's been a poor season for Gusto. I think he would admit that himself. I think I need to make it imperatively clear that that's not me saying I don't think he's a good player. I think he is a good player. I think that he either needs to more time to adjust to this new position, or he needs to find a new club that kind of suits him a bit more. But he is a phenomenal player. We saw it last season how good he can be. Hopefully it's just a blip. It's just a bit of bad form for this season. He can bounce back next season instead. Next up is Nicholas Jackson. Now, I'm not going to let my bias. I'm not going to let my bias on him put him into good. I'm going to put him in decent, because he has been decent for us this season. Again, he's been another kind of a player that, it's one of those things where he has been good at times, he's been really poor at times, so he's a bit flip floppy. So I think putting him in the middle box is is okay for him. Obviously, he gets the winning goal, technically the winning goal in the Conference League final, which should bump him up a little bit. And again, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on Jackson here, but it's quite evident that his finishing this season has not been good enough. And despite how good his hold-up play is, despite how good his link-up play has been, his finishing has let him down so much that I'm going to bump him down from what I would probably like to put him in there, because I'm a big Jackson defender. I love the guy. I think that, ironically, the players that we've kind of looked to replace him in Ekatike and Delap are very similar players to Jackson, so it's obvious that he's like an example of what we want in that role. But it's the finishing has not been good enough. His ball striking has not been particularly great this season, and yeah, just for this season, I think that he has to go down here. If we do bring in two strikers, which is looking likely, I think that he might possibly leave. Again, I personally wouldn't. I think he's good enough. I think he needs that motivation of another striker to kind of get the most out of him. He has not had that this season, because obviously Guiu is an 18-year-old and has been injured at times, and Kunku was never getting into the team. Let's be honest, he's been awful this season. And yeah, Jackson, basically without that pressure of, oh, you're never going to be dropped, I felt like his performance has dropped as well. So maybe we can see him get back on the horse once he's got the competition. Obviously, Liam Delap is going to be confirmed today, hopefully. So there we are. Next up is Reece James, and I'm going to put him in great. And this might be a bit controversial for me putting him so high. The reason I'm putting him here is simply because, again, his leadership has been very, very good this season. I don't think he was particularly good at that in seasons previous. He's kind of grown into that role a bit more. But the main thing here, and it's very obvious why I put him here, is the fact that he's stayed fit. I made a video I don't even know when it was. I think it was at the start of the season, where I spoke about specifically 5 players that needed to prove themselves this season. And Reece James was on that list, and he was one of the players that I earmarked, or like kind of pointed out, needed to prove himself this year. Not only just from performances, and obviously his performances have been very, very good this season, but from, just being able to stay fit and stay on the pitch. Because if you're the captain and you're not staying on the pitch enough, it's just not good enough, is it really? You need to be getting there. And I think he's done so well. And credit goes to Enzo Maresca as well. I think he's done so well to stay fit this season, manage himself well, play well when he's had the chance to play well, still be the Reece James that we know and love. And again, he's stepped up in that leadership role. He's been vocal in the dressing room that we didn't really know that he would be. He's been getting compliments from his teammates saying, "Oh, this is my skipper," things like that. He's had the obviously the famous quote that's now come out from that Conference League half time where he's talked to Enzo Maresca and said, "Don't worry, Gaffer, I've got this. We're winning this game." That type of mentality and that type of kind of leadership is something that we really need in this team. In a team that is quite leaderless and has been told that is leaderless and is lacking experience and all this malarkey, right? He's really stepped up in a good way there to kind of make that happen. And I said he gets massively bumped up here just for proving himself this season and proving that he's not finished, because that's a lot of the things that everyone was saying at the start of the season is that, oh, James is washed, we need to get a new fullback, he's not going to play it for us ever again, blah blah blah. And yet he's survived and all of that criticism. He's come back much stronger. And next season, I think he's going to have an absolute explosion and turn into one of the better fullbacks in the league once again. So there we go. He goes in here again. It's just so good to see him on top of his game, back where we know he can be. Next up is Philip Jurgensen. I'm going to put him in decent. I don't think he's been good this season. I wouldn't say that he's been particularly good. He's been quite leaky in terms of his shot stopping. I would say his footwork is decent, which is kind of why we bought him. But in terms of actually shot stopping, I don't think he's been the greatest. I don't think he's been too impressive, but he hasn't been poor or anything. He's just been very standard, middle of the road, and obviously he hasn't been competing in tough leagues. Really, he's been playing in the Conference League, so not really much of a platform to show what he really can do against really good players. So he goes into the decent box. Next up is Romeo Lavia. I'm going to put him in good. Again, I would put him in great for his actual performances, because I think that his performances this season have been great. But again, it's just his unavailability has really hindered him here, and he's going to be going down as a good. I think every time that he has played, he's looked really decent, and we do look a better team with him on the pitch. I think that's clear to see that we look better with him on the pitch, and because he is that six, right? He is that kind of pressure resistant six that we can play into and get around and, play it up into our tens and things like that. He's that linchpin that I keep talking about this season of this team, and not having him there, it's very evident that we kind of need someone there. And a lot of the time, our slow play and our kind of pedestrian style possession based football comes from the fact that we don't have someone in the middle that can spin on a dime, get past pressure, and then play us up the pitch. He is the prime example of that. If he can stay fit next season, I think he gets like here, genuinely. He gets into one of these boxes for the season if he can stay fit. But again, because he hasn't been available enough, it's not easy to make a judgment on how he's played. So I'll put him in good because he has been good when we've seen him, but can't get into the upper echelons here, in my opinion. Next up has been Noni Madueke. I'm going to be putting him in good too. He's obviously the third highest goal contributor to this team. I think maybe fourth, actually, behind Jackson. I'm not sure. But he's been getting his goals. He's been getting his assists. He's by far our best winger. There's no doubt about that. People that say he aren't are a bit out of their mind, let's be honest. And yeah, he's been decent when he's been able to. I think he had a bit of a resurgence when he was able to play on the left wing for a bit in these last stages of the season too. I think that he had, again, a really decent start to the season, and we can see, again, he's another player that puts in the effort. The thing which I like about him is that he puts in the effort. He gets back to help defensively as well, which is nice, which we don't really expect from those types of dribblers, those types of tricky wingers that try and do everything on their own and try and take people on. They usually don't like doing the defending on the other end. He's a player that does like doing that. I think he's been pretty good this season. Not great, not poor, but middle of the road. Next up is Shimueka. Now, I'm tempted to put him in more info needed here because he has played extended periods of time, but he really never got service in those games that he played. And he's the player I was talking about when I was speaking about another youth player that's kind of I felt like needed to step up a little bit more and didn't really, because we were talking about George getting into that striker role, right? I feel like Shim definitely could have taken that position at times if maybe he was a little bit better in the showings that he did get. Obviously, there's the famous example of him starting the Conference League game. I can't remember who it was against. I think it was Copenhagen. Started the Conference League game and got hooked after half an hour, or like hooked after half time rather, because he just didn't really do anything. Felt like was a little bit harsh on him, but again, I don't think we really got enough viewing of him to really show what he can actually do. So Shim goes into more info needed. Next up is Mudryk, and this, I hate to do this, but he has to go in disaster. It simply has to go into disaster because it's a player that I felt started really well this season, was doing well in the Conference League, scored some absolute bangers in terms of the actual goals that he got, and, playing well. And, he seems so much more relaxed. He seems so much more kind of in his own skin and able to play in this league. Whereas before he's been a bit shaky, he's been having heavy touches, he's been unable to kind of have the footballing IQ to do certain things on the pitch. This season I felt like when he played he was okay at doing that. However, he has to go in disaster simply because he got suspended and is still suspended, and we have not seen him for absolutely ages. We still don't know the verdict of the whatever is happening with his drug tests and things like that. We haven't heard anything, and it's worrying because it's going to continue into this next season as well. It's obviously going to continue into the Club World Cup. He's not going to play in that competition either. And it's just, again, it's been an utter disaster that one of our left wingers is just unavailable for something so silly. And again, I'm not blaming him for this. Let's be real. Again, I've always said this. He is not the type of person and not the type of player that would take something illegal deliberately. I think that he's had some kind of medication that he didn't know that he was not able to have, or his had been spiked or something like that. I don't think particularly it's actually him doing it, but there we are. It has to go in disaster simply because he hasn't played. Next up is Harrison Murray Campbell. He's another one that hasn't played enough, so we'll be going into more info needed. Quite swiftly moving on, we move on to Pedro Neto. And this is where I put him in. Oh, man, this is hard. I want to put him in decent because I think he hasn't been as good as Madueke as a winger. I think he has been pretty poor considering his price tag. However, he has scored some really important goals for us. The equaliser against Arsenal, for example, the winner at Fulham that I mentioned earlier, a really good example. I want to put him higher, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep him in decent. I think that's a fair assessment of him. Again, for the price that we paid for him, really not a great kind of, not a great showing from him, not enough goals and assists. The one thing I will give him credit for is, again, he puts in the effort all the time. He has kept himself fit, which is something he wasn't really able to do at Wolves. So good credit for him. Credit to him for that, but he hasn't been good enough to suggest that he's actually been a good player for me. And Nkunku is next. He's going into poor. I'm not going to put him in disaster because I don't think he has been a disaster. I think that he's been good at times, and when he's played in the Conference League early in the season, I think he was very good, and he would be getting up to here. However, the second half of the season, he has looked completely and utterly disinterested, hasn't wanted to play, has gotten injured, and has just ultimately phased himself out of the team via no effort, no ability or want to play for the club anymore. And because of that, he can go out the door, and no one would care. Genuinely, no one would care if Nkunku left. So he goes into poor. Next up is Cole Palmer. Is this controversial for me to put him in great? Because he obviously can be here, right? He can definitely be in Player of the Season shout. He has been phenomenal in terms of his goals and assists this season, but he has had that really patchy kind of form. I'm kidding. Of course he goes into the Player of the Season shout. He's been one of our best players. Again, up with those three, he has been one of our best players all season. He had a really hot start to the season, got us loads of points, got us into a semi-title race for a certain amount of time before he eventually kind of dropped off his form, as did the rest of the team kind of dropped off in form. He kind of has recovered in terms of his playmaking, but he hasn't really gotten the assists or the goals to kind of show for it in recent times, and maybe that's just because our forward line has been so bogus, and that's why we're investing in that now. However, again, he redeems himself in a big way by winning us a trophy in the Conference League final by getting 2 assists and turning the game completely on its head with a bit of magic. Now, only players that are this quality in this box could do that. He's one of the only players in our team that could do that, and that's why he goes here. Again, it's not controversial for me to put him here, is it really? He's obviously one of our best players this season. Next up is Samuel Raksaki. Decent. He's a player that didn't get very much game time, but the game time that he did get, I think he was pretty good during. Specifically the Astana game where he played pretty much all game. I think he was very good in that kind of 6 role for his, and I believe that's his debut for the club as well, playing in that game. So very good from him. Again, not good enough to get into any of these higher boxes. Not bad enough to get into any of these little boxes. Decent is good enough for Samuel Raksaki. Next up is Robert Sanchez. Oh, I'm gonna get hate comments. I'm gonna get hate comments here. I'm putting him in good. I'm putting Robert Sanchez in good. Am I? Oh, it's really hard because again, at the start of the season, he was a bit shaky. His passing was awful. His bozo moments were coming out in abundance, and he clearly wasn't good enough for the team. I still don't think he is good enough for the team, but however, he has recently really recovered his shot stopping. And again, as I mentioned before, I believe statistically he has the highest save percentage in the league, which is a good stat for him to have. However, I think part of his kind of rise in performance in these last stages of the game is just because our defence has shored up quite a lot, so he's been getting more clean sheets and things like that. However, I think it would be very harsh for me to put him in the same category as Jurgensen, because he's clearly been better than Jurgensen, right? So I feel like he has to go up here just because he's better than Jurgensen, and Jurgensen is here. And I don't think Jurgensen's been poor enough to demote both of them down. So yeah, Sanchez goes in good. The news has just broken literally today, and literally about 5 minutes from me actually saying this, that we are going in for AC Milan goalkeeper Mike Maignan. Now, he is a player that I've really admired for a long time, and despite his form being a little bit worse this season than it has been in previous seasons, I think he's a massive upgrade in that regard. I think he comes into the team immediately if we can get an agreement with AC Milan, so that might be something we do. And if that's the case, we're going to have to talk goalkeepers and their futures in the next video. Next up is Jadon Sancho. He goes in decent too. I think that him and Neto have been on similar kind of trajectories this season in terms of like how good they've been in comparison to Madueke. I think Madueke has again clearly been our best winger, and for these two have kind of, you know, for what we expected from them, they haven't been particularly great. Sancho has also confirmed, obviously, this we've just been confirmed today that he's not being renewed. He's not going to be signed for the 25 million. We're sending him back to Manchester United for £5 million, and it's sad because he has been a good servant for us. I think that that's something we can say. I think that, oh, you know what? Actually, screw it. He's going up here. I think Sancho can go up here too. He's going to be cut off by the camera, but he can go up here. I think he's been a good servant. He scored some important goals at certain times. He had a good goal in the final as well, the Conference League final. So he gets himself up here. And maybe this is me just being a little bit nice to him because he's not staying here anymore. But it's been a very good season for him in terms of being a good servant. He didn't cost us anything. A lone player that didn't cost us anything. Got us some decent goals. Got us a banging goal against Tottenham Hotspur. He gets in here. Next up is Harvey Vale. He played one game and then got shipped out. He's going. Next up is Vega. I'm going to be putting Vega in poor as well. I think that he played decently when he was able to, when he played for us, but of course he got shipped out to Juventus, and there was that weird kind of thing where he said that he was a Swiss Army knife type player and that he could play in any position, but then he kind of went against that midway through the season and said, I want to play at centre-backs and I want to get into the Portugal side, so I'm not going to play here anymore because you're not playing me at centre-back, which I think is really weird. For that weird scenario, and obviously him being shipped out to Juventus, and I don't know if he's going to be staying here or not next season, he goes into poor. The final player for this video is someone that I don't think anyone really expected to, you know, play ever for this first team. But the fact that he's got 2 games is incredible. It's Reggie Walsh. And you know what? I think he was decent in the game which he played. I can't remember who it was against. He played one of the games in the Conference League, I believe it was, and he was really good. He reminds me a lot of Billy Gilmore when we kind of first had him in the side. We're very short-statured but quick, nimble kind of player in the midfield that can play things forward. He nearly gets a goal in that game as well, I believe. Phenomenal from him for a 16-year-old. Again, context is so important here. He is 16 years old. He's in high school. Like, you know, he can't legally go to a bar and get a drink. He's not even developed as a talent yet, and to put in a good performance against senior professionals, phenomenal for him. But again, because he hasn't played enough, I have to put him in decent. I don't think it's fair to put him in the more info needed because he played so well in that one game. So, like Raksaki, as I mentioned before, he goes in here. And that is my list. As I said, let me know what your lists are down in the comments down below, or send them to me on Twitter if you want to make the actual screen. Again, the links for all of that will be down in the description as always. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. It helps out the channel massively. And for more coverage of the off-season and more videos like this, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss out. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, football can be as simple as black and white.